All right,
All right.
cool. All right. Well, it's part of the work.
Yeah.
Okay, we are ready. It's part of the work.
All right. Yeah, you can tell him.
So will it be the same link?
So it's the it's gonna be the same link, yeah.
Even the same link that we sent to the folks.
Yeah.
All right. So we live right now, right?
Yeah, we live.
All right, we are.
You tell him to sign on and then
All right.
we can let him in.
All right, so you go ahead and start the intro.
Hmm.
I'm just waiting for him to join.
Hey guys.
Marcus. Cool. Yeah, we got this working. You can hear us?
Yep. How's my audio?
That sounds great. It sounds real good. Yeah, thank you for being with us today. And we've been working through some technical difficulties, and we're trying to just upgrade our system so that we kind of have things running more smoothly. And thanks for being patient with us. So with that said, welcome to another episode of the Pepe Soup Talk Show, where we bring to the table movers and shakers in the African diaspora. Today, we're speaking to a multi-talented and multifaceted individual. He's a VP at a real estate company where he manages multiple properties. He's a public servant. He's a founder of a mentorship program where he's teaching youth financial literacy and early workplace development. He's someone who's very engaged and involved in the Washington, D.C. community. So we're going to be talking about various things in this conversation, from how he got into real estate, being a D.C. native, business and leadership principles. So for people who are tuned in and will be watching this after the live is over, there'll definitely be a lot of gems that you can take from this. And so, without further ado, welcome to Pepe Soup Talk, Marcus Goodwin.
Thank you guys. I appreciate the introduction and the kind words, and really happy to see the platform you guys are building there.
Definitely. So just to get started with things, Marcus, we know you're from DC. So can you talk about, just your overall background and growing up in DC to start?
Yeah. I really respect the connection to the diaspora, certainly because I have one parent who's African-American, really a descendant of the American experience of slavery as African-Americans from the South, and have a close connection to my grandparents who, God rest their soul, recently passed, and a mother who's from the continent, who was born in Dakar, Senegal, who immigrated to the United States in search of better opportunities for herself and her family to be, and who met here in Washington, D.C., where I was raised. I'm the fifth of 8 children in my family, and we've all been raised with a close connection to the diaspora, learning French when we were young, but also visiting Dakar. All of us have been to the continent numerous times. In my adulthood, I've taken it upon myself to go back even more. So it's been really, for me, a great experience throughout my life to understand from the lens of both perspectives of African Americans and first generation Americans coming from the continent. So, I guess I can dig in a little bit more about my experience growing up in DC from a large family, relatively, at least on this side of the Atlantic. I think in Senegal, it's a little more normal to have this many kids in a family, but started in the public school system in DC, which really have gotten a lot of attention for not being the best educational system when it comes to graduation rates, test scores, and overall just results in terms of how we're educating our young people and how we're training our youth for the future and to be the future. I was fortunate to get an opportunity to attend a private school. That's where I met Mrs. Sekou Berry of the same Fulani tribe as my family.
Right.
So I've always felt kinship to him as a brother, and feel that way to this day. So growing up, I really saw a different world from the educational community I was in, from my family, and that really opened my eyes to really economic empowerment and generational wealth and how it was built. That's what struck the nerve for me in the beginning in getting into real estate, seeing how wealth was built over time through ownership of property and effective management or development of property. So I really wanted to be an actor in that space. And I'm really fortunate that I've been able to be successful and grow and continue to be ambitious and find new ways to contribute both personally to our family, but to communities around the city, because it's such an impactful position that we're in, building land.
Right. Well, Marcus, like Ati said, we are very excited to have you here today. I think that you have a very unique lens into what's going on in our world today. So, because to me, like when I read your sort of like profile, it kind of remind me of someone who's like a bridge between two different worlds, like this world that has immense amount of privilege that you were able to have access to, and the reality of what you were seeing based on where you live in DC. And I think that has sort of shaped your perspective on not only who you are today and where do you see yourself in the future. So talk to us a little bit about how your personal experience affect your sort of like view on leadership, and how do you see yourself as the future leader of our generations?
Yeah, well, I think everybody's a leader because everyone can inspire someone who's come from where they've come from. And I really preach that the most important thing you can do is inspire someone. When I talk to young people, and recently I was fortunate to give a high school graduation speech, I told them that the most powerful thing you can do is build your network, because your network can help build your net worth. And really, the people that you surround yourself with, whether they're friends or mentors or even family, are going to be the people that shape who you are and what you can and will achieve. So being very intentional about your mentors. I even give the tip to a lot of young people: literally write down a list of the people that can help you in your professional life, in your personal life, in achieving any goals that you've set forth for yourself. Because being in regular contact with them over the phone, on Zoom, for coffee, for a lunch, for a dinner, is really what's going to bring you closer to realizing your dreams. If you want to do something, you have to, put your energy, focus, time, commitment, and dedication to it. But you also have to surround yourself with people that are doing those things, because that's really going to be the best way you're going to learn. So, that's, I think, the biggest lesson in leadership that I teach people, and that's being very intentional about your mentors and the people that you surround yourself with.
Right. If I could ask a follow-up question. So we had many guests on this show, Marcus, and this continued to be a recurring theme about like your network is your net worth. So, and users sort of like mentioned the same thing today. So how can we get our viewers to really understand that it's important to put as much work and effort into your network as much as you will put into going to school or anything else that you're passionate about? And the other question is also like, when you were sort of like thinking about, hey, I need to take time and put it in my networking with people, building relationship with people, do you foresee like the goal was like, these people will become very important for me later on? Were you just in your mind, just like, you know what, I'm doing this because it's like what I need to do? Did you have a plan in place when it comes to networking, or were you just like randomly going, just meeting people? Or do you just someone who just believe relationship is important, or does relationship just naturally come to you?
No, I think, relationships are something that you have to actively work to foster, because if you don't talk to someone for a long time, you don't communicate with them, you're not connected to them, your relationship is naturally going to deteriorate no matter how much you all like or love each other to a point, you have to continue to foster and invest in those relationships. You know, 2 points I want to make quickly is that, you know, first and foremost, people want to help. If I ask you, if someone, you know, a student near your school says, Mr. Barry, I want to learn about, you know, cars. Like, you want to help them. You want to bridge the gap of their desires and delivering from your knowledge and your experience. Okay, what can I do to help this person learn about the automotive trade, automotive industry? And by asking, you're actively, you know, creating a call to action. And for the most part, people are going to be inspired to act and support you and help you. And they're going to root for you. They want you to succeed. So not being shy and knowing that people more than likely than not want to help is something that, you know, you really need to realize. And then the second point is, I don't really believe in chasing individuals, but really chasing your dreams and your opportunities. And the individuals that are in that space are naturally going to be the people that you want to meet. So it isn't about, you know, Googling one person who's an expert and doing the thing you want to do and then chasing that person down. No, it's really about putting yourself around the circumstances in which what you want to do happens. And I'll give you an example. If I want to be someone who, you know, wants to learn how to build affordable housing, you know, I don't think the best way to go about it is to like find out who's done an incredible affordable housing project and just chase that person down. You don't know what that person has going on with their life. You don't know if they're active or not active. What I think the better route is, and you know, you can discard this advice. It certainly depends on the circumstance, but I would look for the opportunities, and the people that are going to be in that space are the people that you need to be around. So I would find a place, find an opportunity, find a solicitation to build affordable housing, and the people that are wanting to do those things you want to do are the people that you need to partner with, you need to learn from, and find collectively how you're going to move each other forward.
So I just want to get like more concrete here. So the relationship that you sort of work on earlier in your life before we pivot to your career, in what way did those relationships show up in your career path?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you and I grew up in the city that I'm sitting in now. You know, the city that I, you know, have my family in, you know, hope to have a family of my own. I'm married now. And things you did 10, 15 years ago, people don't forget. And it's a small town. So you know, certainly being good to people, being kind, being gracious is appreciated 10, 15 plus years later. And we're just starting to see that the people that you impressed a year ago, 10 years ago, still remember you as a capsule in time as that person, if you haven't had other interactions with them. So making a positive impression can help you sometime in the future that you don't really, you know about. And if I moved to a different city, say I was inspired and wanted to be in Cincinnati, it'd be the same thing. I'd have to, you know, probably start over, but any impressions or interactions that I would create would inspire people one way or another to be helpful or not helpful, or partner or not partner. So really, you know, as long as you live, it's not just a small city, it's a small country. I'm sure you guys have known just from your Penn experience, even being in Philadelphia, that you've built a vast network around the country. And if you wanted to work on a project in Los Angeles, you'd have a base to start with. So, you know, the communities that you've been a part of, your mosque, your church, your schools, your community center, your gym, those are going to be people that you can lean on, that you've built natural relationships with and shared experiences with, that I think everyone should take advantage of when pursuing your dreams.
Marcus, these are some really good points that you're bringing up. I think this idea of, you know, being very intentional about your network and your relationships is important, you know, because as you progress and as you also just get older, it's very easy to lose touch with people you care about, and it's only through being intentional that you can maintain those relationships. And then the point you bring up about how people remember you as you were in a moment in time, if you haven't, let's say, interacted with someone for a long period of time, it is like really interesting. And when you think about it, that like someone you met 10 years ago just had a moment with, that's the snapshot that they have of you, today.
Like with our generation, it's like whatever the last thing you posted it on Instagram, whether that was a year ago or a week ago, people think you're still doing that thing. I don't know if you guys know what I did to my hair like 2.5 weeks ago on Instagram. And I saw someone today and they were like, "Oh, you changed your hair." I'm like, that was like 3 weeks ago.
That's funny. That's funny. So going to your real estate, can you talk about how you arrived at the position where you're at as VP, and if you also talk about your function in that role, and then just the overall DC market, real estate market, like how is real estate in DC right now? We know that real estate in different places across the country has it's kind of hot right now, and it's been going up through the pandemic, and so can you just talk a little bit about what that environment is like, where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about hot. There are a lot of corridors and neighborhoods in DC that year over year, from July 2020 to July 2021, are like 15-20% higher prices when you're talking about single family homes. I think apartment rents by and large have been flat year over year, but they're starting to trend back up. And they had for the past 10 years been on average in most of the popular corridors, certainly rising at 3% a year, which, compounding across 10 years means that, rents have nearly grown 40% in that time frame. So we are really in a growing environment where it's harder and harder to find both residential and commercial properties, and your margins for investing in them are shrinking as the years go on. And the people that bought long ago have the lowest cost basis. So finding a good deal is the hardest thing you can do. And, I tell people who are just starting out in the space, the best thing you can do, find a deal, control a deal, and then find people with capital and resources to partner with you on it. In terms of my personal journey, really it began at a young age where I was inspired to be in the real estate business. And I saw really, again, from the community of people that I was moving in my school community, rather than my home or my neighborhood community, that a lot of wealth, generational wealth particularly, was built through owning and operating real estate, whether that be commercial or residential properties. And I started out at a company in 2013. And that was really what sparked the flame in me to understand how to build financial models, how to find deals, how to vet if a deal is good or not, how to put together investment memorandums. And that's kind of been my niche in the business that's made me valuable to firms that need someone who's going to find new opportunities for them, new ventures, understand their acquisition mandate, and then actionably bring them deals that can help them build a robust pipeline of deals.
That's powerful, especially when you think about, let's say, your start in what planted that seed in you, this idea of seeing generational wealth get built, and then kind of further going into how you can do the same, and also like spread that to others. And so you talk about your program that for instance, and I imagine that's very tied into everything you've learned, and the what you've gained through being in the real estate industry. So you can talk a bit about that program.
Yeah, it really started with a childhood friend who really grew up in the toughest of circumstances in public housing here in the city, who really wanted to give back and help young people who grew up like us in circumstances where they, don't come from privileged backgrounds, don't have access to resources or educational experiences, that can advance them in life to places where they want to be, and really need young professionals, senior, seasoned professionals alongside them to help provide the kind of experience that will advance their life to getting closer to their goals. Because without strong family, neighborhood, and educational network, when you come into your own as a young adult, it's really hard to get where you want to be, no matter what your dreams are, whether they are in business or medicine or academia or entertainment, like wherever you want to go with your life, you really have to have robust and strong and supportive communities in all these arenas, because there's a lot of ways to fall off. There's a lot of activity young people get involved in cities like DC and most major metropolitan cities across the country that don't get them closer to their dreams, and unfortunately put them on a track where they aren't as productive and successful as they would like to be or as they could be. So we created a program that only operates once a month, but hopefully will start to operate more regularly, where we pair up our students with young professionals one-on-one, so they can start to speak about their goals, speak about their dreams, and whether their parents and guardians are very involved or less involved, and there's a mix with the young people we deal with, we provide them the opportunity to learn how to get closer to their dreams. And we are very open-minded, diverse, thoughtful. We'll bring in professionals that are directly correlated to what they want to do. And that really helps us create a mentorship relationship that they can start to build for the future. They know what a mentor-mentee relationship is, and they can start to carry that forward and get more mentors in their future.
Wow. Yeah, that's a powerful program. And it's really, really cool to see you sort of giving back to in that kind of way. And we know that you're also, you're very involved in the DC community. You sit on a number of boards and you're just an active citizen. Can you talk a little bit about just what, what you're involved with in the DC area?
Yeah, frankly, mentoring program is the biggest thing I've been involved with. Can really claim credit for leading. I sit on a few boards of directors focused on workforce development and training, predominantly for young African-American and Latino men in the construction trades. Another organization that seeks to raise funding for after-school programming around the country, but also here locally in DC. And then I just really try to be as active as possible and supportive as possible of other individuals in their organizations to learn about the work that they do and really find synergies between the work that I do, the work that they do, and share resources, share funders. Anyone who's going to contribute to support us should contribute and support to, and will contribute and support other worthy causes. So that's what I've really been happy to do, and feels right to me to, support the next generation that grew up like me.
Right. Marcus, it's really inspiring to hear that you're very big on community engagement. And I do think, like, to be honest with you, our generation really struggled with that. I sort of like, when I hear your experience and story, it kind of remind me of like, you were really born at the wrong time. Like, you kind of remind me like you were just born like back in the 60s. And so because of the work that you do today, and how can we close this gap between our millenniums? Because I do feel like our millennium have this mindset about like, you could do it on your own. You like go to school, like you well-educated person. You went to one of the top schools in the country. There's this mindset about like, it's all about individual drive, but somehow your mindset have shifted to like, it's not about me. It's about empowering those around me. How can we get our generation, the millennium, to really not think so much on, it's okay to think about yourself and your career goal, but how can we shift that mindset that we are going to be the one that is going to be able to build our community, that was going to be able to shape our futures? How do we close that? What we close that gap, especially with sort of like us being this social media generation? and people feel like behind the decks, I could just like hashtag something or tweet something, or I made a difference. But how can we sort of get on the ground? Because I do think that's where we could actually like make the difference. And hearing your experience, it made me think about like, how do you build this stuff in your schedule, given your actual job? But
yeah, well,
back to my question
I
is
need to
like,
exercise more. I'm starting to get a little gut.
but,
But
but
yeah,
how do we get our generation to really start thinking beyond themselves, but really understand like your success is going to be based on your work that you put in your community. Like your community is really affect your future and everybody else to follow that.
yeah, no, I agree. And I think the first point you made about people think that you can do things on your own, I really agree with, the famous quote of there's no such thing as a self-made man, or, today you'd say there's no such thing as a self-made person, because we're all made up of those around us that we surround ourselves with, be it friends, family, community members, or professional colleagues or acquaintances even. So all of these people that we're surrounding ourselves with are going to define what we do, whether we like it or not. And everyone likes to think that they either did things on their own or they're going to do things on their own. But really, the best things in life are done in coordination and collaboration with those around them, with people around them. And although not everyone always gets the accolades, sometimes individuals do. It's really the people around them that form the greatness that, is the full realization of your hopes and dreams. And for us, I think that we do have a generation of people who are, focused on what they themselves can do. And I think you kind of refer to the keyboard warriors that think, share, post, liking, retweeting something is making a difference in the world. And yeah, it helps shine a spotlight on something, but true organic action, for me, someone who's the child of activists, is really on the ground, in the streets, outside of the cool, comfortable confines of the home, but in the spaces where people meet. And I think there does need to be a greater collection recognition of human collective action. We've seen it with the marches in the past year across the United States, certainly here in DC, with the creation of Black Lives Matter Plaza, and that has inspired in each and every one of us the will to act. And it wasn't just from a tweet, but it was from action that happened in the physical world and with the collective action of many. So I do encourage as many people as possible to think outside the keyboard and act outside the keyboard.
Yeah, that's
we're gonna just pause and like really like trying to soak that up. Appreciate you for dropping all these gems today on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
definitely appreciate your the wisdom and experience so far. Go ahead, Keith.
Definitely, and thank you for everyone who was here with us and who's watching this video. After it's been broadcasted too. If you like what you're seeing, please make sure to just give the thumbs up below this video, and make sure to subscribe to our channel, and also click the notification button on the top right to stay in tune with what we've got going on with Pepper Soup Talk. We're bringing on movers and shakers like Marcus Goodwin that we have with us today. And so, Marcus, you talked about workforce development and how you've been doing, a lot of work, especially with the construction industry. And right now in this society, especially U.S. society, two things I would say we're noticing is how there's a real shift in just where work is going. Like we're seeing like a huge shift in technology, like these big tech companies and just tech in general, and where the opportunities lie. But then also you bring up trades too, like how there may be even some areas that people don't focus on as much that can be very, very lucrative. So can you speak about just let's say like where you see the workforce going and what people should maybe be keeping in mind as they're going through school or getting these degrees? Because I'm looking in the back, view, and I see I see the Harvard University
degrees,
and the the University the UPenn plaque. And so you have experience in all sort of like ways. So can you talk a little bit about just what people should be doing in order to set themselves up for success in our society today?
Yeah, I just set up my office and these things have been sitting in boxes for years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I got to stick them up somewhere. Let me throw them behind me, as kind of art decor for the room.
I think it's a nice place for them.
But I think we're always on a journey of learning. I'm in my 30s now, and I'm continuing to learn and always thoughtful of what a good online program is that I can learn about. Recently, environmental building design, because there are so many manners and facets in which we can make real estate and our properties around the country and in the city specifically more environmentally conscious and friendly. So if we're not sharpening ourselves, we're getting dull. We're going to atrophy. And I've really appreciated and liked the opportunity to learn on a consistent basis, whether that's in a formal educational setting or not, and definitely doing it as early as possible and not delaying, because life is long, and it gets more difficult and more complicated trying to go back to school once you really get set into your life and you get comfortable in your life. And you got so many bills to pay that it's hard to just pause everything and go back to school. So I always tell people, especially younger people that I mentor, every educational opportunity that you want to pursue in life, do it sooner rather than later, or at least chart a path to it. Know that you're going to work for 4 or 5 years, and then you're going to go back, but don't fall off track, because once you fall off track, it's hard to get back on.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think we 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, no, definitely stay on, the importance of staying on track. It's huge.
Yeah. And then there's just so many, so much distractions out here. I'm coming from a place, sometimes I feel like I'm a little concerned about our generations, but at the same time, I just know our generations is so creative. Really, you're talking about the whole George Floyd, the Black Lives Matters. And I think when you look at that, there's a sense of hope here, because the face of those protesters were young people. They were really inspired by that. Talk to us about you being a community individual. How did that moment, being in DC, and DC was literally the place where all eyes, the whole world was experiencing history. And you being from DC and seeing that massive protest going on, and with the whole politics going on, how did that impact you personally? And what was your takeaway from that? And how can we build on that?
Yeah, I think, in the context and environment that we went to school in, because we all went to the same university, and really that I grew up in, you really try to, by and large, ignore issues of race and focus on being the best athlete, being the best student, being the best community member. And it's only when you're pushed to the point that it is the most important thing going on and injustice is the highest concern that you will make an action. And I think COVID, having us sit at home, really forced us all to reflect on, is policing done fairly? Is racial justice being served in America? Have we really made much progress in achieving more equity? Looking at the wealth gap and how it's grown across racial lines, looking at the achievement gap and looking how it's grown across racial lines, looking at the home ownership gap, looking how it's grown and how things are getting consistently more inequitable. We all have to do something. We can't just try to be the best in our individual lanes. Like, we all have to work. Human skin palette diaspora was there, and people wanted to do better. They wanted to learn how to do better. And I hope that we continue to sharpen our focus on solving those key areas, the achievement gap, the home ownership gap, and the wealth gap. Because if we can solve those things, we can get a lot closer to racial justice. And it's not just about, companies turning, their logo a different color during, Black History Month or Pride Month. No, it's about actually having actionable steps toward making, the cities, the states, and the country that we live in fundamentally and structurally more equitable.
Yeah, that's very real.
Yeah,
go ahead. There are a bunch of, there are a lot of gaps, in our country right now, especially that fall along racial lines too, or that are connected to race. And Marcus, we know that you're someone, that you ran for city council. You're a candidate for city council in DC, and so you're someone who knows the value of local, local, whether it's politics or just policy in general. And I think a lot of people, especially in our generation, are very focused on what's happening on the federal level, and come out when it's time to vote for a president. And that's what you see a lot in the media. Can you talk about the importance of civic engagement, about local policy, local elections, and I guess speaking to our generation right now about why that's so important, and because that's what affects your day-to-day life, and really what one needs to be engaged with more than anything.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Although COVID made it more difficult than ever before. Meaning that, they changed the requirements where normally there was like a pretty rigorous qualification process, a number of signatures from registered voters that you had to have. They changed it so that anybody could run. So there ended up being like 25 candidates on the ballot. And standing amongst 25 people was just, tough. That said, definitely ran a strong campaign, was one of the top candidates in the field, although not ultimately victorious. I got a great opportunity to speak to the issues that matter. And a lot of the policies and ideas that I spoke about are now being passed. So I'm happy that that's happening, because we've inspired, our current policymakers to actually act in a manner that, is helpful and going to move forward the communities that we care about. And I encourage everybody who's interested in public service to consider running for office, to learn as much as possible, not just to jump out there, but ensure that your community, your networks are being consulted with, and that they're on board with you, and they're going to cheer for you, and they're going to advocate for you and push you to being successful in that arena. It's not for the weak.
No, it's not.
Because it's a zero-sum game, people will attack, people will tell any sort of story. I mean, you see it on the national level, but happens on the local level too. So it's not for the weak of heart. You really have to be tough, and you learn a lot in the process about yourself, about others, about your communities. And, ultimately, you really get the test if that's what you want to do with your life and commit your life to. So I'm happy to have gone through the experience, to learn what I've learned, and really look forward to the opportunity to continue to be a better community member through this experience.
Right. And speaking of that, I think this experience is something, sometimes we put ourselves in situations where the end goal is not to attain our goal, but the end goal is what the experience bring out of you. So what can you share with us about you sort of like really stepping into these political platforms where, one, perception-wise, you look young. Second, you were coming in contact with people who felt like this is our realm, like you need to stay in your place. Third, you were talking about issues here where some people was just like, why do you care about these issues? And I know when you sort of like in public and talking about these things, but in private, like what was going through your mind? What was your thought process based on like what the experience brought out of you?
I think, perception is a big part of it, but ultimately, certainly how you come off and how you present yourself. But, I learned more and more that as long as you are speaking to the heart of the people, the issues that matter to them, you'll be successful. And that's why people test messaging so much. They want to know if the ideas that they're putting out there, the energy, the ethos that they are evoking with their words are really what the people are concerned about. And while the news media, I think often is just focused on scary things going on in the world and things you should be worried about and things that are threatening, everyone wants safety, security, happiness, and equality. And if you're speaking the right way about those issues, you're going to be just speaking to the heart of the people, and you're going to be successful, and people are going to want you to do well, regardless of your age, regardless of your background, regardless of the way you look. It's really about, are you speaking to the heart of people, and do they feel comfortable at night because you and the words you speak and the ideas that you support are aligned with them in their heart?
Well, Marcus, we appreciate you for continuing to, this might sound corny, but for continuing to be like the Harry Tubman of our generations. I think personally, someone who knows you, who grew up with you, it was very powerful for me to see someone who looks like me that was really like tapping into these space. Sometimes we sort of like afraid to talk about, and a lot of these issues that we care about, we talk about these issues, whether it's inequality, whether it's race, whether it's like inequality in every aspect among our friends. But you were really able to step up to that big mic. And it was really inspiring to really see you just being this sort of like just paving the way for so many of us. So I just wanted to like thank you for continuing to serve not only as a role model for so many of us, but for continuing to really push that status quo, and for continuing to push for change. And it's just always when I talk to you, you not only speaking from a place of that this is something that you really care about, but you really speaking from this is something like you want to see a couple of years from now. And so I'm going to build on that. Like, where do you see yourself, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? And what change do you want to see in DC and outside of DC?
Man, that could be its own discussion. In 5 years, I want to be continuing to build myself in a professional manner in delivering affordable housing and creating a higher standard for affordable housing. Just to touch briefly on the reason why we don't see more affordable housing built, beyond the fact that, it's lower rent per square foot per month than market rate housing in general. In some ways, depending on the housing programs you use, it could be more profitable. But one issue that people often talk about is that a lower rent will not support property maintenance and upkeep at the same level that a market rate housing building would. And I think that delivering a higher level of quality in building affordable housing will help with operations, maintenance, and overall aesthetics of affordable properties. So if we can create a luxury affordable housing experience, I think that we're going to be creating a better society and better cities that don't have runaway pricing with market rate rents rising at 3% a year nonstop.
Well, because sometimes I'm very big on words, like vocabulary, because it matters. Because some word that you use resonate with some of us, some word that you use don't resonate with other people, right? This word, like affordable housing, you hear this word a lot. Can you dissect this word for us? What do you mean exactly? Like, what affordable housing mean? And what does it look like?
Yeah, for the most part, we define it as housing that, based on the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, uh, their determination of metropolitan regions around the country, uh, what someone at 60% of the median family income can afford in monthly rent. So they usually calculate, 25 to 30%, usually 30% of someone at 60% of the median family incomes, gross income, to be what they can pay in monthly rent. So whatever that is divided by 12, they create a price scale and a price schedule that you can receive both loan funding and voucher or grant funding to build, operate, and manage affordable housing at those rents. So that's what affordable housing is, breaking it down to a numerical level.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you and I talk about it, we think, it's housing that is reasonable for a working class person. And that's
Right.
what the equation is trying to get at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Marcus, it's it's inspiring the work you're doing in real estate, especially when you think about how it's directly also connected to people's everyday lives. And we want to thank you again for being with us, and for everyone who is watching this video. This is Pepe Soup Talk, featuring Marcus Goodwin.
Yeah.
Marcus, before we let you go,
we
we gotta ask this question. Which we always ask, which is, if you had to go back, or rather, if you were talking to your younger self, so let's say Marcus Goodwin before he went off to college, and you knew you're about to have this college experience, and you're going to get into real estate and run for office, all these things. What would you tell that boy at that time? As he was sort of going on this coming of age journey, and what would you have, what would you tell him, just to keep in mind as he's about to sort of embark on on his adulthood?
That's a great question. Something that I've thought about a lot, and really it's chase your wildest dream. Don't settle. I think a lot of people who I see who are young, who are middle-aged, who are older, settled at some point, or consider settling, or think settling is the right thing to do. I mean, it makes sense. We all got bills to pay, whether it's rent or mortgage, or car payments, or credit card debt, or student loans. So if you get a job, that's usually good enough. That can put you in place, that can put you in position to pay those things. But then you look up and it's been 10 years and all you've done is work that job that you're not excited about, you're not passionate about. And I know that a life fulfilled is not a life that's a settler's life. It's really an ambitious person's life. So always being ambitious, always dreaming and conceiving of the greatest thing possible, or the greatest thing impossible, and then chasing it until it's possible. I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice. And tangibly, I've settled at times and I've thought that what's in front of me is the best option, but I know and I've seen that there is better out there, and having the highest of high standards is always rewarding in the end.
Mm-hmm. Right on, man.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any better way to end than that.
But I will say that I'm not surprised by just your mindset, your drive, your ambition, Marcus, because it just take me back when you and I ran track. I remember, we would get on that track, and you never settled on that track. You gave all you got. Every race, you and I used to run neck to neck. And that was just always a moment that I'll never forget. So trust me, I can't wait to see, how you're going to continue to really, the impact that you're going to continue to make. And congratulations again. I know you just got married. In addition to that, hopefully we see little Marcus around. So I got somebody to bother and play with. But we are very honored,
Yeah.
incredibly honored to have you on this talk show.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on our show.
Mhm.
And being an inspiration.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for everyone who's tuned in. We got a late start to Pepper Soup Talk today, and we want to be mindful of Marcus's time.
Right.
But this is Pepper Soup Talk. We're here bi-weekly is on Tuesday now at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Marcus, thank you.
Yep, thank you. And then if there's anybody that you think should come on our show and talk about their experience, share some skill set, continue to empower our Black and Brown people, because this is our space.
Right.
We want to continue to be the voice of the diaspora. So please let us know, because at the end of the day, we want to keep this show going.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure we continue to bring people on board that really are going to speak to our generation,
Definitely,
to our people. So
definitely.
Have a great night. For all those people who tune in today, thank you. We know that it's late. Have a good night, get some sleep, and we'll see you at the next session, right?
Definitely.
All right.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Take care. Tell Jen I say hello.